Hello and welcome to TRT World. I'm Jafar Hasnan coming to you live from Washington.
And I'm Melinda Nusafora. Welcome to our show here in DC. Now, in exactly 1 week, Americans will head to the polls in one of its tightest elections contested to date. The latest national polls show former President Donald Trump marginally edging ahead of his Democrat rival, Vice President Kamala Harris.
It is still a very tight race, Melinda, and both candidates are fully focused on closing their campaigns strong. With just days left, each side is ramping up efforts to secure undecided voters and energize their core supporters. Both are aiming for a strong finish in key battleground states that could ultimately decide this election. TRT World's Malik Fouda begins our coverage.
With 1 week to go ahead of what's being dubbed as the most crucial election, many voters are casting their ballots early in the U.S. state of Michigan. Dearborn, the first Arab-majority city in the U.S., is expected to play a big part in how Michigan, a key swing state, will decide. As things stand, former President Donald Trump is leading the national polls, only marginally. He's grasping onto a 0.2% lead over his challenger, Vice President Kamala Harris, but that's well within the margin of error. The residents of Dearborn know how much rides on their vote.
The Arab American community, I believe, is going to be the deciding choice in the state of Michigan which way this election is going to go.
This is the reason why I support and I endorse President Trump, because we're going to stop the wars.
And the candidates are doing all they can to secure that vote.
On the subject of Gaza, we all want this war to end as soon as possible and get the hostages out, and I will do everything in my power to make it so.
And Trump is making sure his regular antics are on full display in an effort to galvanize support.
Together we will fight, and we will win. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
But Trump continues to court controversy. On Sunday, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe featured in his New York rally. A joke calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage has caused a backlash.
It's completely out of line. We are valuable, equal citizens, and Puerto Rico is a very valuable land with many good people.
The former president has since distanced himself from the joke, but his running mate, J.D. Vance, took a different approach.
Can we all just take a chill pill and take a joke from time to time? This is ridiculous. We're not going to restore the greatness of American civilization if we get offended at every little thing.
The race is surely heating up, and with polls projecting both candidates neck and neck, the slightest slip-up on either part could cost the presidency. Malik Fouda, TRT World.
Violence in the Middle East may be dominating headlines ahead of November's US election, but implications for Ukraine of who wins could be even more significant. TRT World's Joel Flynn has more.
We're making it clear we stand with Ukraine now and in the future.
Joe Biden may have meant those words when he said them in September. The man sitting next to him would have wanted to believe them. The likelihood is there are probably few people in the world outside America more worried about the US election than Volodymyr Zelensky. And for good reason. There's much at stake for the Ukrainian president, with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris offering starkly different visions of how to end the war with Russia. In particular, Zelensky and many in his country are worried about the prospect of Trump taking office after he'd promised to halt the conflict with a phone call to Vladimir Putin. Trump's affinity for the Russian president is widely documented and highlighted again during the Republican candidate's meeting with Zelensky in September.
We have a very good relationship. And I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, oh, I see. Yeah, but you know, it takes two to tango.
Trump himself has been vague with details about what exactly his phone call or plan would entail. The suspicion is it would likely have key differences to Zelensky's victory plan.
Talking to Donald Trump, I told him what is the way out. Either Ukraine will have nuclear weapons and then this is defense for us, or we should have some kind of an alliance. Today, we do not know any effective alliances other than NATO.
Although Zelensky's body language didn't appear much warmer during his meeting with Kamala Harris, her policies align more closely with Kyiv's.
There are some in my country who would instead force Ukraine to give up large parts of its sovereign territory, who would demand that Ukraine accept neutrality and would require Ukraine to forego security relationships with other nations. These proposals are the same of those of Putin.
A Harris presidency would also, however, look to prevent escalation of the war into a direct confrontation with Russia. That has the potential to hamper Kyiv's fight. Zelensky has appeared aware of the role played by US lawmakers in this too, especially after congressional Republicans held up a vital aid package earlier this year. Some have called for an end to this financial aid. Though the issue is a talking point at rallies, including Donald Trump's, popular support for Ukraine across the US suggests most feel differently. A poll by Brookings in August suggested Americans across the political spectrum were sympathetic with Ukraine. 2 years after presenting Congress with the Ukrainian flag from the front lines, Zelensky is aware that America has not survived the war without some of its financial scars of its own. How they have healed may prove to be almost as important for his country's future as its own scars.
For more on this, let's bring in TRT World's Joel Flynn, who joins us live from London.
Joel, you were in Ukraine recently. What was the mood like on the ground there? Is there a lot of focus on what this election might mean for them?
Yeah, look, I think the front lines of this war have fundamentally been shifting quite significantly for most Ukrainians, those fighting on the front line as far as the soldiers are concerned, but also civilians as well. Russia has been bombarding the entire country daily with drone attacks, artillery near the border regions, and of course a lot of the bombs. Those bombs themselves, particularly in northern parts of Ukraine like Kharkiv, have increasingly been updated with modern technology that increases the range of them and allows them to hit targets even deeper into Ukrainian territory. That puts more civilians at risk, civilians that had previously fled some of the border regions that were being bombarded by things like artillery. So essentially, the country, by and large, right across the entirety of it, is being bombarded daily. Civilians are being targeted. They are aware of this. The tactics that the Russians are employing now isn't just to target civilians, though, and try to make morale really sap across the country, but also to target infrastructure in particular. We've seen huge attacks on Ukrainian electricity stations. That has hit the power generating capacity of Ukraine by something like 50%. That is really, really critical in Ukraine, which has a very, very harsh winter. And as we look ahead to the next couple of months, for instance, that's going to be a really critical factor in maintaining support for Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky, of course, is aware of this and is trying to ramp up support for Ukraine financially, not just in terms of providing things like weaponry, but also providing aid that will be put towards trying to help support that infrastructure.
That's Joel Flynn live for us from London. Joel, thank you very much for that update. Let's unpack this further. Joining us now live from the Ukrainian capital is Romeo Pokrytaski. He is the editor of the new Voice of Ukraine. Romeo, great to have you here with us on TRT World. Let me begin by asking you, what are Ukrainians most concerned about if there is a leadership change in Washington? Are they bracing for the worst or hoping for more robust support?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, people are generally just kind of hoping things shake out all right. There's not much that Ukrainians can do to influence a U.S. election. As a result, everything's just tense and there's not really a clear release valve for kind of the stress that Ukrainians are living under right now.
Romeo, give us a bit of a sense of Zelensky's relationship with each of the candidates. We saw in Joel's piece just before we came to you the interaction between both of them. I'm just curious as to whether you think there's one candidate or another that Zelensky would be able to work with better.
Well, you have to remember that Zelensky's relationship with Trump isn't something that came up yesterday or during a campaign visit this year, but was really kickstarted when the Trump administration attempted to rope Ukraine into the false narrative of corruption involving U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. And this really, as you can imagine, soured Zelensky's personal opinion of Trump. Now, diplomatically, we can see that he's doing all he can to maintain at least cordial relations with the Republican Party, with the Trump administration, the Trump campaign. It's not clear how successful he's going to be, given Trump's very obvious pro-Russian bias and his attempts to undermine Ukraine, his party's attempts to undermine Ukraine, especially in military aid. But he is doing the best he can with what he has. And again, there's not much Ukrainians can do to influence their election, so this particular event is completely out of our hands.
Okay, now let me ask you the million-dollar question. Which candidate, what's the sense in Ukraine about which candidate is better for Ukraine's potential NATO membership?
I mean, there is no real doubt in Ukrainians' minds that Kamala Harris presidency would clearly be better in terms of maintaining at least short and medium-term support. A lot of people try to comfort themselves by saying, well, Trump is a wild card. He's known to kind of act off the cuff and not in line with anyone's projections. So they're hoping that if Trump wins, that remains the case and Trump kind of surprises us with how he will treat the conflict. Though, again, that's, in my estimation, mostly wistful thinking.
Romeo Kortriaski, thanks very much for joining us today here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time. Now, Michigan's... All right. Sorry about that technical glitch over there. Now, Michigan's Muslim voters could play a decisive role in shaping the results. Dearborn, home to one of the largest Arab American communities in the country, is a key battleground city. I traveled to Dearborn, and here is what I gathered about the Muslim vote over there.
For decades, the Muslim community leaned heavily towards the Democrats, voting on issues like civil rights, immigration, and healthcare. But the Biden administration's response to Israel's war on Gaza, along with Kamala Harris's perceived indifference, has shifted priorities.
What are some of the most important issues the Muslims, the Arab Americans, are voting on?
Gaza, Lebanon, Islamophobia. We're very concerned because our countries, our homelands, are at war. They're under assault, and the country that we live in and we are citizens of is partner in this war.
The mood among Muslim voters here is more somber than ever. What was once a loyal voting bloc for Democrats is now questioning whether or not their voices are truly being heard, especially on foreign policy.
This vote today is different. Mr. Trump, our former president that we met and we respect, I don't see that his hands in the blood like them, like Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden. We need to have a clear policy, because my conscience will never allow me to vote for someone he is for killing.
According to the Arab American Institute, support for Democrats has dropped sharply. A recent poll revealed that 42% of Arab Muslims in Michigan are now leaning towards Donald Trump.
We're definitely not happy. I think the Democrats on their end, from Biden to Kamala, have done nothing and showed no empathy, no humility, no humanity towards the Palestinians and now the Lebanese. And, I can go on to the Yemens and Iraqis. They got blood on their hands. I think there's some people in the community that are saying, let's vote for Trump to send a message to the Democrats, and I get that.
The question for many voters is not just which candidate to choose. Some are asking if they will vote at all.
No Harris, no Trump.
No Harris, no Trump.
Yes.
But experts warn that voter apathy could have disastrous consequences for the Democrats.
Considering that Joe Biden won about 80% of the Muslim vote nationwide in 2020, then if a lot of those people stay home, that will drive down his vote total and could help Trump win Michigan.
Jaffa, listening to that report, it makes me wonder, were you surprised at the views of the people that you spoke to?
I was very surprised.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why.
Too.
You know, when we went to Dearborn with our Shed Kadir Furkan, we were trying to talk to people, restaurant owners, barber shops, business owners in the city. And to my surprise, we did not find a single person who told us that they're going to vote for Kamala Harris or the Democrats. Everyone we spoke to told us we're voting for Trump to punish the Democrats, or we're not going to vote this time around, we're going to sit out. Of course, our sample is small, and I'm sure there are still people in Dearborn who will vote for the Democrats, but the fact that in our time over there, about 5 days, we were not able to find a single person who told us that we're going to vote for the Democrats really goes to show how upset the Muslim population is in cities like Dearborn, which has the highest concentration of Muslims anywhere in the United States, about the way the Biden administration has basically carried this war on Gaza. Having said that, we also found some young voters who told us that they're going to vote for a third party, for example, Dr. Jill Stein. But again, voting for Dr. Jill Stein, according to experts, might be of advantage for Donald Trump, because the Muslim vote in Dearborn is very crucial, Melinda. And up until now, the sentiments that we are gathering, not just in Michigan, but many other swing states, is that the Muslims are very upset with the way the Democrats have handled Israel's war on Gaza. And whether or not the Dems would be able to win that vote again, win it back, well, that remains to be seen. But you know what I did earlier when we were coming to our broadcast location? I had our producer, Ilyas Abji. I asked him to go out on the streets of Washington, D.C. and ask the locals here about what they feel, which candidate is going to be better for Muslims of this country. And here's what the locals in D.C. told Ilyas.
There's a lot of anger about what's happening with the Biden administration, and some of that is spilling over to Harris. On the other hand, we know that Donald Trump has made a lot of derogatory remarks about Arab Americans and Arabs in general. So I think it's anyone's guess.
She has very clearly said that she is not going to be a continuation of the Biden presidency. So I would like to believe that her international policies and politics will change and not carry from the Biden administration.
Just how decisive, though, is the Muslim vote likely to be in a state like Michigan?
Well, Melinda, not just in Michigan, Muslim vote is very crucial in many swing states. I'll give you an example. Back in 2020, guess how many votes did Biden win Georgia with? It was 13,500. Guess how many Muslim voters voted at the time in Georgia? The number is 61,000. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Biden won Pennsylvania by 81,000 votes. In Pennsylvania, in 2020, 125,000 Muslims voted. I'm not saying they were registered to vote, they voted. So they can really make someone win or lose the election. And I think it's fair to say back in 2020, the Muslims were largely supporting the Democrats, because it came right off the back of the controversial Abraham Accords that were installed by then President Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump's controversial policies about the coronavirus pandemic. So I think what we have learned from 2020 election, and even preceding 2020, 2016, 2012, I think it's fair to say that the Muslim vote in this country has been very crucial. And I think it can also be said that with a lot of certainty that Muslims in this country are not loyal to any voting bloc. For example, prior to 9/11, Muslims used to vote Republican because of Republican values at the time that they used to embrace. But after 9/11, there was a perception that Republicans have waged a war against Islam, and that's when the Muslims started to vote for the Democrats. So I think what we are seeing now is a shift in this voting bloc, very much similar to what we saw in the aftermath of 9/11.
It's going to be very interesting. We'll keep an eye on it, of course. All right, let's move to some other foreign policy issues now. And Pakistan has remained one of the closest allies of the United States. But their long-standing relationship has often been marred by mistrust and divergent interests. As Americans are all set to elect their new president, people in Pakistan are anxiously waiting to see what that outcome will mean for them and their country. Kamran Yusuf has more from Islamabad.
Thousands of miles from the US, the race for the White House is a subject of debate and discussion in Pakistan. So much so that Islamabad's Quaid-e-Azam University has invited a Republican Party member to give a lecture. Sajid Tarar, who runs a group called Muslims for Trump, explains why the Republican candidate is good for the Pakistan-US relationship.
Pakistan ultimately always enjoyed the relationship, a better relationship with US when the Republican Party is in power. Historically, it's proven the most drone attacks took place during the Obama period, then the Prime Minister kept waiting for the call.
But Kandil Abbas, a professor of international relations, does not endorse Tarar's view.
During Trump period, I believe Pakistan's relation will be more unstable and volatile because Trump's policy is based on America first.
During his first term as president, Trump blocked security and civilian aid to Pakistan, accusing the South Asian nation of playing a double game in the fight against terrorism. However, he developed personal chemistry with now jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Khan's supporters feel Trump's victory could lead to the release of their leader.
In my opinion, US election, for example, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, both are same for Pakistan. Some policies like immigration policies can be strictened by Donald Trump and not by Kamala Harris. But other policies like our economic crisis we take, the aid on Pakistan will depend either contemporary geopolitical interest of America in Pakistan.
When it comes to Pakistani citizens, we may look up to Kamala Harris, in my opinion. There is a reason for that, because she has an Indian heritage, and we have seen Trump's policies beforehand as well. He was very strict and stern on the immigration policies.
Pakistan and the US do have a long-standing relationship, but those ties are often driven by Washington's security interests.
Islamabad was once called the most allied ally of Washington. Pakistan was a frontline state in the US campaign against communism and then war on terror after the 9/11 attacks.
But since the withdrawal of US forces from neighboring Afghanistan, experts feel Pakistan has lost its relevance in Washington. Evidence of that may be that Biden, after becoming president, never spoke to any Pakistani prime minister. Kamran Yusuf, TRT World, Islamabad.
For years, the Culinary Workers Union Local 266 of Las Vegas has been delivering wins to Democratic candidates in the state of Nevada, but with Donald Trump running neck and neck with Kamala Harris, can the union deliver this important swing state to Democrats once again? TRT World's Martin Markovitz reports.
In the sweltering desert heat, Stephanie Barrientos is on her 10th day canvassing, going door to door for Kamala Harris. The single mother from Peru is on a paid leave of absence from her casino job thanks to Las Vegas's powerful Culinary Workers Union, which has endorsed Harris.
The majority of us work in the casinos. Las Vegas is all about casinos. Everybody works there. That is why our union is so strong.
Made up of cooks, housekeepers, and other hotel staff, for years, the union and its 60,000 members has been helping Democrats win elections in Nevada. But Democrats won the state in 2020 by only 35,000 votes. And there is growing fear they might not be so lucky this time. Nevada is a key battleground state that both candidates are fighting for to get to the White House. So far, former President Donald Trump is running neck and neck with Harris in most polls.
Let's be clear. If the election's held today, we think Trump would win. But it's not today. We've got time. We're gearing up. And we're hitting the doors, and we're going to have hundreds of our members hitting hundreds of thousands of doors.
But nationwide, union support for Democrats has started to erode. After 28 years of supporting Democratic presidential candidates, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which represents truck drivers, declined to endorse a candidate in the upcoming presidential election. In Nevada, Trump has also benefited from the sluggish economy and growing support among Latino voters, despite his tough immigration stance. Both have proposed to eliminate taxes on tips received by service and hospitality workers, a proposal which has drawn support from the thousands of people that are now working in Nevada's fast-growing gig economy. Non-unionized gig workers are in all sectors of Nevada's economy, including food delivery and ride-sharing services. Uber driver Ahmed Dogan is an immigrant and a Trump supporter.
I like to hear his business, man. Yeah, I understand, this one, the business. We're already, paying too much tax.
As Election Day approaches, the Culinary Workers Union is leaving nothing to chance. Their goal is to have over 500 canvassers knock on more than 1 million doors in the state for Harris by Election Day. Martin Markovitz, TRT World, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now, according to the Council of Foreign Relations, income and wealth inequality is higher in the United States than almost any other developed country. There are also large wealth and income gaps right across racial groups, with experts attributing it to the country's legacy of slavery and racist economic policies. Randolph Nogel has travelled to Los Angeles and he filed this report for us.
It's hard to live in America. You don't have nothing and you won't never get nothing.
Lisa, Karen, and Kathleen live in the lower 9th Ward, a low-income neighborhood in New Orleans. They say they feel forgotten by their government and that survival is a community effort.
I've had to take supplemental jobs. As a disabled person, I've had 2 strokes and a heart attack. I was 38. I'm now 60. This eye was closed, face was twisted, was slobbing, walking on top of my shoe, left leg dragging walking on top of my shoestrings. And I still don't have the full use of my left arm, but I had to take jobs cleaning people's homes and whatever I could do to make ends meet.
Rent done went up, minimum wage done went down, it's low already, where you can't afford to pay for housing. So if you was to be looking for somewhere to stay, it'll be hard for you to find somewhere to stay because everybody want so much money to rent their place.
I wanted to ask you, next year will be 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. Do you feel like the lower 9th has come back, or what are the main obstacles for this community to come back? It obviously was, and I think it still probably is, a bastion, a stronghold of Black home ownership. Do you feel like it's still that way, or is it slipping?
If you own your property, at least you have a chance because you could stay in an abandoned house because it's yours. But a lot of people haven't come back because they don't have nowhere to go. So it's easier to stay in Texas or Baton Rouge or somewhere else where the rent is not as high as it is here.
Obviously, there's an election about to happen. How connected do you feel to the election, and what are you looking for if you are looking for something to change? What would it be in terms of national leadership?
The Democrats been in office for 4 years. Kamala, has my life changed? No.
Kamala, you've been in the office, bro. If you ever seen a puppeteer show, that's all it is.
It's a stage, they all are actors, and at night they all go have coffee together. For real. They put on a stage. They're all actors. For real.
Disillusionment with a political system that's yet to address the needs of this community and many others like it across the country. Thank you so much for generously sharing your views with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being concerned.
Thank you.
For more on this, let's bring in TRT World's Randolph Nogel, who joins me live from Los Angeles. Randy, good to see you. Great report there. I wonder whether or not the sentiments that you gathered in New Orleans, would you say they are exclusive to that city or to that estate, or would it be fair to say that this is something that is prevalent across the United States right now?
Well, certainly with respect to the political disenchantment, this is something that's not shared by all members of communities that are struggling, low-income communities, but it's certainly something that we're seeing become more prevalent as we speak to people from communities that are feeling a bit forgotten in this economy. Certainly here in Los Angeles, there are similar dynamics at play. Los Angeles is one of the most expensive places to live in terms of housing prices, in terms of rent, and it's also one of the places dealing with a homelessness crisis. Unlike really any other city, you see large groups of people camped out here on the sidewalks in parts of the city, and this is a problem that runs along racial lines, as does the housing crisis. For instance, the African community in Los Angeles makes up just under 10% of the population, but in terms of the homelessness population, it makes up more than 30%. And this is largely attributed to long-standing economic inequality. Now, people that we've spoken to, and as you saw in that report, many can point to multiple Democratic administrations in past decades. We had, of course, two administrations, 2 terms of Barack Obama, 1 term of Joe Biden, but I think a lot of people feel as though that the issues that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis really aren't being addressed. Certainly with respect to housing, it's become one of the big issues in this campaign, in part because so many people that are living right on the threshold are spending so much of their income on housing. In fact, 7 in 10 Americans, by some estimates, by some research, are living paycheck to paycheck, and more than half of them, or a third of Americans, are spending more than half of their income on rent. So it's one of those issues that we've seen pop up in this election. It's unlikely to go away anytime soon, and it's certainly going to be something that many Americans will be paying attention to.
It's an important issue. We appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Randolph Noble, thank you live for us in Los Angeles. Okay, before we go, a quick reminder that TRT World will be ramping up its rolling election coverage starting on November 4th. We'll be broadcasting from multiple locations right across the globe.
Indeed, and we will be bringing our audience key figures, interviews, and of course fascinating insights, not just from here in DC, but from across the world. And with that, it is goodbye from us and our team here in Washington.
We'll see you again tomorrow at 17 GMT.